Hi everyone, happy Tuesday. So we are continuing with demos. This time I want to use the Inktense blocks, which I haven't used at all, and then my Inktense pencils in the 50 Jungle Miniatures by Camellia Angel Cova. This is part of my 10 books to finish this year. I've only done one page. Now, last week, I guess I'm going to make this a series, so I'll have to create a specific playlist for my 2022 demo series. Got to clean up my playlist, they're a mess. If you watched last week, we did this page using the Derwent paint pans, Inktense paint pans, excuse me, the 24 palette, and of course I added a little bit of stuff to it here and there, but pretty much colored the whole page using them. 2 layers. I was pleasantly surprised at how well they did. As you can tell, it did of course crinkle the paper, which is one of the reasons I wanted to do this series, first starting out with Amazon paper, because it can be a little squirrely when it comes to water. And so for comparison, and so definitely go check out that video if you haven't already and you're curious about the paint pans. So for comparison purposes this week, I wanted to use my pencils and the Inktense blocks just to see what the differences are, if it's any easier, if I get different results when I activate them with water compared to how the paint pans did. So we are not going to do that page. We're going to do this page. So again, in last week's video, I did show how I'm creating a background for each of these, kind of doing an outline of the image like you would see in some of the Sun Life drawing books. I skipped that step this week. I went ahead and outlined it in just a little watercolor pencil, and then this time I used the Pitt Artist Pen, the black ones in the fine tip. It's still a little darker than the line art. What I really should do is use the Micron 3 pen, which is what I used to outline this image last week, and matches up with the thickness of the line art pretty well. But the ones I have are old and they're all running dry, so I had to order a new pack, and I wanted to go ahead and get started. So this isn't as dark as the one last week, but good enough for what we need. So I have the 12-pack of Inktense blocks. As you can see, I've barely opened it. A few of them have gotten broken over time. I'm not too concerned about that, just because of the way I plan to use these. The reason I gotten the paint palette mostly was because for large backgrounds, I figure the paint pans will do better with Inktense going over a large area, but the blocks may do a good job too. But like I said, I only have 12 of these, and for this one I picked, now I'm going to spend all this time taking the plastic off and probably knock them all out of here. There we go. Alright, so for this one I am using is the name on it? No. It looks kind of like a blue-green for the background. Yeah, there's not an actual name on it. So, alright, so we're going to try these out. I have never used one of these before. And so basically, as far as I know, you just rub it on there, and like a pencil, you come through and activate it with water. But with these blocks, you should be able to cover larger areas faster than you would with a pencil. Plus, they probably output more color than the pencils do. I know I tend to get bored easily and do wacky colors, and it will happen for this book, but with these demos, I have found myself trying to play with more, I don't know if traditional is the word I'm looking for, but I guess a more typical color palette you would see in a jungle setting. These were pretty good. It's just a blocky edge and it's getting on my hand. So you may want to wear a glove. I will be curious, since these are ink based, whether they will wash off. And they are a little crumbly. So keep that in mind. I'm using probably medium pressure. I might try taking some with my water brush off the block onto the paper in some areas just to see. So as I talked about in my other video, that was a little darker than I meant to do. Whoops. Like I said, these are very, very smudgy, very much like pastels, the feel of them. So like with the paints, you probably don't have quite as much control as you would with the pencils. And I am pressing on the paper and getting it all over the paper. All right. I need... See, I'm smudging up the paper already. Okay. So really, with this being such a small looking background, I would probably use these more on, like, if I was doing the whole page or something like that, like on really big backgrounds where you could just kind of just, you know, just... Michelle, what was that? I don't know. You get what I'm saying, where it doesn't have your precision. You don't have to worry about... And there goes that one breaking on me. Again, not the hugest problem, but annoying nonetheless. Yeah, so these are pretty messy to use. I definitely would prefer using the paints for the background. Just on... Plus with the paints, you kind of skip steps, right? Like here, like with the pencils, you have to put the pigment down on the paper. Well, I mean, you could take it directly off the block, but typically you would put the color on the paper and then activate it with water. With the paint set, you can just skip that initial step, so it's a little more efficient. And if you've followed me for even a few months, you know when it comes to coloring, I do love my efficiency. Y'all can't see what I'm doing. There we go. Like I said, I think these would be more useful for, like, like an open background on a Hannah Carlson book or something, where you would use like your neocolors and stuff on. There's really, like, the really big open edges to the page. Where you don't have to worry so much about smearing and whatnot. But I said I wanted to try these. And I know people are curious about them, so in these little tight areas right here, I will probably have to come back in and do at least, like, try pulling some from the water brush onto the, or using the water brush to pull the pigment off the block. Yeah, see, these are not good for small sections. Actually, I don't know if I'm going to color the elephant gray or not. We might stick with like blue grays or something. Maybe not entirely out of the realm of possibility. But when I was looking at my Inktense, I realized I don't have a lot of really soft grays in my Inktense. So we might grab okay. Yeah, this is, just make sure I don't accidentally color a part that's not supposed to be green. So the format of this one, I will probably, since we're already pretty close to finishing this part up on the background, we will just do this regular speed, and then we'll start the water activation at regular speed. Depending on how well that goes, I may speed that part up. And then I'll do like just a small part with the pencils just to give you an idea of what I'm doing, and then we will speed that up as well. Hopefully I wasn't really throwing y'all off last week with the back and forth. I'm trying to find the optimal, see, look at my hands. So with these blocks, either I would say wear gloves, but just know if you're like me and you tend to stick your fingers all over the paper, you're gonna wind up with smudges on the paper. So very smudgy, very smudgy. So you might want to use a paper towel or a piece of paper to kind of cover it up. All right, I need to go. I'm gonna go wash my hands. I'm gonna go refill my water brushes, and we're gonna activate the background. All right, so again, I'm going to use my Arteza water brush. Though this time, because I'm not using a palette, I may have to press the button a little bit to get this activated. I don't know. We're just going to start out brushing it and see what happens. It's not dissolving quite like I would want it to. And again, you have to be careful how much. Let me squeeze it a few times and see what we get. It's a little better. Really soggy paper though. Yeah, not particularly happy with it at this point. And I am really messy with it. And I just got green all over my hand. Razzle. So what I am thinking is this is likely due to the paper quality. It's going to be tough to get it to fully dissolve unless you're using a fair amount of water, and the more water you use, the more chance this paper is going to rip to shreds. So I tell you, I'm not a huge fan of these just because they seem, you gotta be, they're messy. You gotta be real careful because you can easily get green all over yourself and smear it all over the page with these, or whatever color you're using. So they require a little bit of caution. Not quite as simple to use as the paint pans for sure. So, alright. Let's go back over here. Yeah, the one problem with my background stuff is a lot of times the art comes right over here close to the edge, so when I do the backgrounds, then I start getting to where I'm getting to the edge of the paper, and trying to do this and activate it is a little bit of a pain. So I might do another layer. However, we are going to wait for the page to dry completely before I do so. Because less chance of the paper tearing. It seems like it's activating okay if I don't squeeze the brush at all. But if it's an area where it just doesn't look like it's dissolving that well, I'm pretty much just squeezing the brush briefly once or twice, wiping it on the paper towel, and then going over it. But now that we've kind of gotten into it, it looks like it's just flowing okay as is. I see there's little bits and areas that I'll have to, like I said, I may try pulling some pigment directly off the blocks. See, like down here, it's like it doesn't really want to dissolve like it was doing up there. It's like weirdly inconsistent. Again, I don't know if it's necessarily the blocks. It's probably just the paper. This is probably just not going to be a good paper to use the Inktense blocks on. And that's fine. or only use them for specific looks. Like maybe I want a background that looks a little more patterned and not necessarily entirely smooth. More than likely, though, what I'll do is save the blocks and try them on better quality paper and see how they do. I probably won't use them like all the time because I only have 12 of them, and to be honest, unless I fell in love using them, I don't really want any more than that. Because like I said, at the end of the day, even if they work well on the other paper, they are kind of messy. So I will finish this up and then I'll let it dry. I'll probably go over it a second time, either off camera or just a few minutes of sped up video to show you guys what I'm doing. We'll see. We'll see. It's kind of like the other with the paint palette where it's just not super consistent. And I keep going over the lines because I am super messy. Probably need a smaller brush, but again. So it looks a little better on the camera than it does to me. To me, it looks really kind of smeary. But on the camera, it does look a little better. So that's good. All right. So we got some of these little spaces. I'm going to just pull some. Let me do that and put that. Okay. First, let me wet the brush a little bit. Pull some pigment. And get these little nooks and crannies. That seems to do pretty well. If I would be a little more careful. I think that's all of them. Yep. Alright, so what I'm going to do, like I said, is let it dry. I don't know if I'm going to scribble back over it. I'm a little worried about the paper integrity, and I'm worried if I scribble back over it like that, it's going to rough it up even more, or I may just pull off the block. Either way, I'll show you guys a little excerpt of what I end up doing, and then we will show the background complete before we move on to using the pencils. All right, it is mostly dry, I'd say. So yeah, I am not a fan of the Inktense blocks on Amazon paper. It looks a lot better on the camera, but it seems very streaky to me. Using the blocks and like putting them down, they're crumbly. You got to watch it with your fingers. It gets messy. It's like using pastels. And yeah, I can take it, like, use the brush directly on the stick, or the block, but if I'm going to do that, I might as well use the paint pans, right? I mean, I think all these colors are in my paint pans. Now that would be something interesting to do a comparison on. The only thing is this does not have the color names, so I would have to compare. Hopefully the numbers would match. But something tells me that there might be one or two unique colors in here, so if I don't have them in the paint pans, theoretically I could use these and just wet the blocks. So there's an idea for the future. Alright, so So yeah, even with 2 layers, and I rubbed it over the top of it because again, pulling it from the block would be just like using a paint pan. So I'm trying the blocks themselves. It's down. Here's one thing I'm curious about. You know, some green actually comes up on my finger when I rub it on that. Let's see if it does that with the other page. Let's take this violet and rub. Actually some of that violet comes up too. So might be worth it to spray your pages if that's going to be an issue, like spray them with some type of finishing spray. I hadn't even thought about that possibility till just now. But keep in mind, again, as I'm putting my fingers all over this, I need to be cautious of that because I don't want to get little green smudges everywhere. So we're going to start. I'm going to color these leaves up here with 1 layer, then we're going to activate it and then see how it looks. We might do a second layer and then I will speed up the rest of the picture. Probably using 2 and 3 color combos on everything. These are Inktense pencils. For the flowers up here, I'm using tangerine, cadmium orange, and golden yellow. So now, one problem is you get this crinkly page. It can get a little difficult to color when the page is crinkled. What I usually would do, for demo purposes, I wanted to do each bit at a time. But what I normally would probably do is do the whole picture. Like go ahead and put the, well, not with the blocks because they were messy. But I would either paint the whole picture at once or I'd do everything in pencil and then activate it all. And that way it kind of all crinkles at once. And then you're just using a second layer or adding shading or doing something instead of trying to continuously add layers, if that makes any sense. I don't know, it's getting kind of late in the day. I usually don't record this time of day, but I am trying to get a bit ahead on my videos for next week. Actually, starting on this the day I posted the paint pan demo, because if I have to go to my parents' house some next week, I won't be able to, I won't have the time to really record much then. So we are gonna, I'll go ahead and see if I can get a little ahead of the game, which is where I like to be anyway, so that if work gets busy or life gets busy, because next Monday's going to be really busy at work too. If a lot of things go crazy and I don't have the extra time. Now one thing, I probably want to try to make sure that all my lines, like how I'm coloring, looks similar, because with this paper it may not entirely get dissolved. So I want to make sure everything's going in the same direction at least, so it looks consistent enough. And now I've had my Inktense pencils for a while. Definitely don't use them as often as I should, since I'm really big on having real vibrant color in my pictures. It's like I forget about them, and then I get intimidated because I haven't used them in a while. Like this paper feels really fragile right here, sort of in the crease. So yeah, I mean, unless you use some sort of treatment on the paper, no matter how you slice it, Amazon paper is just as on its own with no treatment is just really fragile paper. And so if you're like me and you are the type to put pretty hard pressure down with pencils, putting pencils over anything that's been activated with water is probably going to make the page pretty fragile, and you might risk punching a hole through it. I've definitely done that. So, okay. So let me go back. I want to darken this up a little bit. So what we'll probably do actually is I'll go ahead and activate this flower, and then I'll move over to the other one while this one's drying, and then we'll see if we're going to do another layer or not. I did one picture in a Jade Summer book using Inktense like a very, very long time ago, and I do not remember. It turned out pretty good, but it definitely, woo-wee, I can tell I have not used a pencil in a while. My wrists are already like, what are you doing? What is this? Torment. Stop it, lady. Okay. There we go. Alright. So, let me get this. So I've squeezed it a few times and then kind of just dabbed it a little bit on the paper just to make sure it's not going to completely puddle on me. So, work my way out. Dab a little bit off. And keep working my way out. A little bit off. Be a little careful over here, because this feels fragile. Oh, that's weird. I hope as it dries that those little water type marks will go away. Alright, Sid. Alright, honey. Sorry. Now I have a cat trying to come over here. She is befuddled, wondering why I'm not in the living room. And I do take a little bit of the pigment off once I get it good and built up like this, so that it doesn't, you don't see it as much in the next layer. Now I have not squeezed this brush since the initial kind of just saturating the brush, so I am just making little circles. Getting into the green, apparently. That is still trying to activate. So my flowers may have a little bit of a green tinge to the edge. Oof. Yeah, that looks pretty fragile. Overall, though, not bad. The lines actually dissolved a lot better than I thought they were going to. So we may only do the one layer, because this side looks, when you're starting to get where it kind of looks like the page is starting to turn a little translucent, that's That's not a good sign. That is a, if I press down any on that even after it dries, it's probably going to punch a hole in the paper. So, and I am keeping the paper towel over part of it just because I don't want that green to come up on my hand. It doesn't look like, it looks like you really have to rub the paint palette page to get it to come up, but this green seems to want to come up very easily. So, yeah, that's not going to dry by the time I get this other one done. That's fine. We'll show this other one, and then actually I will probably go ahead and be done in here for the day. And then pick this back up in the morning. We can kind of speed through the rest of the pictures. This is pretty much how the rest of the picture is going to go. I'll either use probably 2 or 3 different pencils and just do some color combos like this. This doesn't look like it's covering up the line art as much as the paint did, so I will probably be able to get away with not having to do outlining, though it looked really sharp when I did that on the previous picture, so I don't know, we'll see. And depending on how quick the rest of the picture goes, I might at least record and do a little bit of a speed through, adding any sort of embellishments. I don't know what I'm going to add yet to this one. I'm sure some dual metallic or sparkle pop gel pens will be involved because I pretty much love adding those to every picture at this point. Probably add some stickles kind of similar to the other picture, just to give a little consistency. The other one actually turned out quite nice. Yeah, I have to record this one over a few days because my wrists are I am completely out of practice with using any sort of pencils. Now, with a normal pencil, I probably wouldn't be pushing down this hard, but again, I am all about not having to go back over stuff multiple times. And again, I think with this paper, that is the best approach. The less you have to wet this paper, the better off you will be in terms of it not getting as fragile and risking it tearing. And for some reason, I feel like the paint pans dried a lot faster. Maybe I'm just impatient today. Maybe that's it, because that just doesn't seem very logical. It seems like I'm theoretically using more water with the paint pans, and thus it would take longer, but who knows? I'm pretty excited about finally getting around to these. I've been wanting to do this kind of stuff for a long time, and just each time I got around to it, life kind of gave me a kick in the pants where it just wasn't feasible, and I needed to take a break because I just wasn't feeling like making videos at all. And not that my mood is the best recently that it's ever been, but I don't know, doing this has helped, I think, this week quite a bit, and at least improving my mood a little bit. So I wouldn't say I'm in like a super good place mentally, but definitely doing better than I was a month ago, I guess. I have done a better job of staying off social media this week, so that is probably... Wow, it's doing that over here too. Maybe I'm wetting the paper more than I think I am. Interesting. Because again, it didn't really give me those little splotchy areas like that with the paint pans. So, who knows? Very, very odd. And, whoops. Got a little into the green on that one. Alright. So yeah, this side's drying fairly quickly, but this side I can still, yeah, that feels ridiculously fragile. But the Inktense pencils actually look pretty darn nice, if I do say so myself. Yeah, we're just going to leave them the way they are. I will, like I said, I'm going to pick this up tomorrow. I will probably shade in everything, then like activate it all at once, because I just, it seems efficiency, y'all. Just the going back and forth, like coloring some, activating it, coloring some, activating it, just feels like just tedious. So you'll probably see me color and shade in everything else, because one layer seems to be plenty for me. I'm happy with that. This side looks a little more saturated, to be quite honest, but that's okay. I can always come in and add just a little bit off the pencil if I feel like they're extremely different, but you know, flowers generally don't look exactly alike anyway. Some look darker than others. So, yep, we'll shade it all in first, then I'll activate it all at once. Then I might show where I embellish it, and then we'll do a wrap up and we'll do my final thoughts on this one. All right. Alright, so here is the finished picture. Um, I didn't record any of the little extras that I added on. I did go ahead just to make it look a little similar to the other page. I added some stickles. I did some outlining in gel pen. And for the colors that I didn't really have a gel pen for, I just used a alcohol marker to do an outline instead of like the micron pen. I just picked a shade similar to the colors I was using, and I really like that effect. I think that is something I'm going to use a lot more when I'm using like watercolors or anything to be activated with water to just kind of sharpen the lines a bit. So my thoughts on this, I don't like the Inktense blocks on Amazon paper. Even now, it's still, well, no, I'm good there, but I was nervous about picking up that green. It took 2 scribbles of it to really get a mostly consistent looking background, which wasn't a huge problem, but it still looks a little splotchy. It looks a lot better on camera than it does to me, but I feel like I would have had better luck just pulling it directly off the block with a brush, and if I'm going to do that, I might as well just use the paint pans. That would be a lot easier. Now, for some of my other books, I'm going to continue to test them out, and maybe on better paper they will perform a little better. I don't know, but not going to get rid of them. Never know when there could be a use for them. There may even be some colors in there that don't match up with the paint pans, so I can just pull, like I said, off of them using the brush if I really want to. But I don't think I'm going to get any more colors of those. And then the rest of it was Inktense pencils. And I like using Inktense pencils, work pretty well on this paper, but I feel like I get kind of inconsistent results, and that could just be my issue, my user error. So when I was putting the pigment down and I'd leave areas white, it seemed like I had a lot of struggle pulling color over into the white areas, probably just because of the type of paper that it is. And then I got this weird kind of, I don't know, splotchy look. I don't know how to explain it on the elephant. I don't mind it too much, but I had gotten it on the flower too, and I didn't like how it looked on the flower, so I ended up just putting stickles all over it. But part of it I think might be, like I said, user error. I may have just used way too much pigment for such a small space. And probably the best approach to these is to use a fairly light touch for one layer, let it dry, then add another layer. I tend to be lazy, so I will go really heavy just to save myself multiple layers. And that's probably why it looks kind of mingled, splotchy like that texture to it. I probably just added in too much pigment to start with, and I should have taken my time with it. But that's okay. I actually don't mind it too much in this, and the blue worked out great. The one thing with Inktense, as you can tell, you don't really have a lot of light colors. You don't have super light pinks and stuff, and I guess the way to get those types of colors is to just use less pigment, like I did kind of coming out here towards the ears to get those lighter colors. So I didn't really have a light gray, so I had to kind of make use of some blues to get the elephant look, but I do like vibrant color as well, so it's not as bad, I guess, as I would have thought it would be. I did add some stickles to the bottom here. I used some glitter gel pens and some dual metallics to outline a few of these, and then I used glossy accents on the raindrops and on his eyes. So the pencils were still definitely slower though. However, it was a lot easier to create blends with the pencils than I think it will be to use the paint pans on untreated Amazon paper. So I guess my final thoughts on the whole Inktense thing is, if you're looking to put down just like a solid color base, um, or like a solid color background. I haven't played with using different colors yet, but on Amazon paper, if you're just going to put down like a solid color base and then maybe come in and add some shading or something later, I think the paint pans are the way to go. If you have large areas to cover, I think the Inktense paint pans are the way to go. But you are limited in your color choices because you only have 24. However, you can mix and match them. One of these days I need to create a chart where I combine the colors and create a swatch based off that, because you can do that. I'm just not too experienced with it. But I feel like the paint pans were easier to use on this paper than the other two types of Inktense. If you don't have the paint pans but you have the blocks, you can pull the pigment, like just brush the brush against the blocks to pull pigment off. That would be a way to use them, kind of like the paint pan sets. The Inktense pencils do pretty well on this paper, but you really, it really does the more you can saturate the paper, the better you're going to get your blends. But this paper does not lend itself well to being saturated with water, so you have to be very careful with them. And if you use too much pink pigment, you might get some smearing of colors, some splotching. I did have a towel I was dabbing color off on every now and then, which I think helped immensely, but you might get a little bit of a textured splotchy color with that. But I do think they are a lot better for smaller spaces. And if you want to do blends, it's probably a lot easier to do it with the pencils. So basically, if I was going to use Inktense in these books, I would probably reach for the paint pans first, then the pencils, the ink blocks last. So, but maybe the more I use the pencils in here, the more I'll get used to them. So yeah, that kind of concludes my demo of, well, maybe not. Another idea I had for February was to try pre-treating the page and seeing how these do. So maybe pre-treating the page using the paint pans in like the background, and then maybe the pencils and some of the paint pans in the foreground. I'm just going to kind of pass on the blocks unless I need them specifically for that color. We might do that in February, but I definitely won't have time before the end of the month. So, yep, that's the difference between the two pages. I think they both turned out really nice. I certainly don't have a problem using my Inktense pencils or the paint pans in these books. I just, probably in the future, once I test the pre-treating, if I like it, I will probably be using pre-treated pages more often, but we'll just have to see how that goes. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed these, and it seemed like you enjoyed last week's pretty well. I will come up with some more ideas, I think, for February. We'll do maybe the pre-treated page, and I also had a request to check out the Davenport pastels, so we might do at least one demo video with those. I'd like to do at least one a month with my supplies, especially the ones I'm not too familiar with. So if there are some you've seen in my collection and you have an interest in seeing how I use them, let me know, and we will get that worked out. Anyway, thanks guys for watching. I will be back on Friday with my coloring supply and book haul for January, and then Sunday will probably be completed pages. I may just call it good on the 30th and just go ahead and post those, because otherwise I would wait till the following weekend. So we'll just see how the week goes. So since I'm recording this a little early, thanks for watching, and bye for now.